Welcome to the Bear Talk, your go-to Chicago Bears podcast, where a father and son break down all things Bears, from Soldier Field to Sunday showdowns. I'm your host here, Dylan Weaver, and as always, joined here with my dad. How you doing, Dad?
It's football season. The draft is coming up. I'm super excited. We already know what the key additions were so far in the offseason, and now we get to see what happens at Magic pick number 25.
Yeah, no, super excited. Draft this week, as always, like it is every year, always falls on my birthday, that first night of the draft, which is always awesome. It's a good little, now that, I'm older, birthdays don't mean much. It's good to watch football, not watch football, but, a little bit of start of the football season. It kind of gets it in the off season into full swing. Get to see what players you add, coming off of a very good draft last year for Ryan Poles, hopefully being able to replicate the same thing for the defense side of the ball this year. But super excited to look forward to that Thursday. But like you said, we're here today to talk about the offseason additions that have already happened. Also talk about some players that are out the door and no longer Bears players this year, and talk a little bit about that. But let's hop right into it. Let's start with the people that, headed off this year. We can kind of discuss it, our thoughts. I'll just go through first and kind of let everyone know out there, obviously, who's not out there anymore. But obviously, the big one, DJ Moore, got traded to Buffalo this year. We traded DJ and a fifth-round pick, and in return, the Bears got a second-round pick from the Buffalo Bills. Tremaine Edmonds, he didn't get traded. We just had to end up releasing him, so we didn't take on his cap for another year. But the Giants picked him up. They signed him for a 3-year deal for $36 million. Kevin Byard, another one. This one probably hurts the most for me, but he also is out the door, signed a deal with the Patriots. It's a 1-year deal for $7 million with incentives up to $9 million. Jaquan Brisker as well. Another one of my favorite players on this defense. You kind of got to see it in that last game against the Rams. Probably the best game he ever played in a Bears uniform. But Jaquan Brisker gets released as well. He was a free agent, signed with the Steelers, 1-year deal for $5.5 million. And lastly, another key player, Nashawn Wright, signed with the Jets 1 year for $3.5 million with incentives up to $5.5 million. But that's where we can start off with this, just the players that got out the door. Mostly these players are defensive players, which is kind of what we talked about on the top of the show in our intro. Just with this draft, more than likely going to be a defense-heavy kind of draft. Got a lot of needs to fill on the defense side of the ball with these players going out the door. But maybe give your thoughts, which one hurts the most to you, and maybe we can just talk about some good memories these players had. Some of them were pretty new, but some of them have been here for a little bit. But personally for me, it's probably Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard for me that hurts the most. Just two players. When it comes to Kevin Byard, he was a leader on our defense. He's that last player back there to kind of make sure everything in front of him is getting taken care of as far as communication goes. So his veteran presence is definitely going to be missed, but, that's why they brought in Coby Bryant, more younger version of Kevin Byard, very new in this year, has played safety, cornerback, and then recently has gotten moved to that safety position. But he's been a baller, electric, big step in his career. And so far, what we can tell, this guy's got confidence like no other. He believes in himself. And I'm ready to see that on the field. And then Jaquan Brisker, at least the one good thing you can say about this signing is he is a Pennsylvania native. He grew up in Pennsylvania. That's why he went to Penn State, where he played college. So for him, at least it's a good homecoming for him to go play in his home state with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And nonetheless, it kind of does suck that Mike Tomlin isn't there anymore, because the defensive genius he is, I'm sure he would have loved a player like Jaquan Brisker. With Jaquan, it comes down to the concussions. That guy is everything you want in a football player. He comes downhill, hits hard, plays the game the right way. It's just ultimately sometimes those hits are a little too aggressive, and it's led to some concussion trouble early in his career. But he proved last season he can stay healthy. And honestly, part of it makes me think, seeing how good he played in that last game against the Rams, it almost felt like it was like, okay, we're at the end of the season. I can go out and go hit how I want to hit. And if I get a concussion, so be it. Because in that Rams game, it really was the best game he ever played as a Bears. I mean, he was shutting down Puka Nakua, Devontae Adams. He had a really good game in that playoffs, but I just always liked Jaquan Brisker, so it's gonna suck to see him go. But those are probably the two players for me I'm gonna miss.
How many concussions have you had?
More than I've reported.
So amnesia may be sneaking in with you. I don't know if you recall or not. The Bears were ranked 29th overall in total defense last year, and in passing defense, which is the two people that you are having these fond memories of. We were ranked 22nd.
No, I hear you. I'm not saying it didn't need to happen. Like they made the wrong decision. I think this is the right decision. They're going to get younger. Yeah. Kevin Byron was a little bit older. Jaquan Brisker's in the middle of his career. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying these are players you're still going to miss them at the end of the day. And
I missed him. And you can during the game when he was out for concussions.
Well, he wasn't this past season. That's really what I was getting down to. But with Kevin Byard, you can talk about how bad the defense was. He led the NFL in interceptions. So these guys are it's a team thing, a collective thing that represents that whole defense, which is another reason why this needs to be a defensive heavy draft. We've talked about it last season all the time. The pass rush, non-existent. No one gets home. Those safeties and cornerbacks, it's harder to play that position when you don't have any pass presence and a quarterback sitting in a perfect pocket. So it's stuff like that that goes into that defensive stuff. But individually, Kevin Byard was a great player. I mean, there was a reason he was first team All-Pro, Pro Bowler this past season. Jaquan Brisker, like I said, not that he was an amazing player, just one of those players you connect to, kind of how you are with Tyreek Stevenson. He's a terrible player, but you got some love for him out there. So, it's stuff like that. Jaquan was just one of my guys that I always loved. He was one player, too, who liked to interact with with fans on Twitter. He would always respond, like stuff. He liked plenty of my tweets when I responded and commented on his stuff. Just a super cool player that always gave his all. And in concussions, I grew up with plenty of people that, they just get a bad end of the stick. Their head just can't take those hits. And he ultimately was one of them. But he did prove last season. He didn't miss a single game. Played all games. It's just early on we saw how hard he hit, and it impacted him. And that's why I'm saying I think this past year he knew it was a contract year. Probably played a little bit more easy, not as hard, not as fast to the football, knowing that in the back of his head. And that's why I'm saying I think that's why we saw his best game against the Rams, because he was knocking passes down, lighting people up. And I think it got to the point where he knew it was the end of the season. He's like, if I get a concussion, so be it. It's do or die at this time. So I think he eased it through the whole season to play it safe. And then when it was do or die, he was ready to go to battle. So that's why I was just trying to do this segment. These players that are leaving, I don't know out of that list. I mean, I know we both feel kind of the same about DJ Moore. Wish him the best. He had some great plays, but he also had a lot of bad plays. And, I think he's going to a good situation with Buffalo Bills. At least, Ryan Poles isn't doing him dirty. At the end of the day, it's business. He really could if he wanted to, but he's given him a good quarterback out there. Josh Allen's a great quarterback to play for, and they don't really have a wide receiver one. So DJ Moore's going to get to step into that role, and I'm sure he's going to have a really good statistical season. And a lot of Bears are like, why did we trade him away? But you got to think about it. We have so many mouths to feed over here. And over there, DJ Moore's going to be their main guy. Like that's going to be Josh Allen's guy to throw to. So I wish DJ the best. Nothing against him, but I think a big part of that decision was not only the contract he got tied to, where we're paying him $30 million a year and he's barely getting 600 yards a season, but it also ties into those plays that we saw in that playoff game where he just gives up. It's not like it was a couple plays. We've seen it ever since Caleb took over. There's plays of him walking off the field when the play's still alive. I mean, there's a lot of examples you can point at. But like I said, DJ Moore, after we're all out off this planet and not here anymore, they'll be playing that catch against the Green Bay Packers in overtime. I mean, he has plays like that, and that was the frustrating part about it. It was like he had such high moments, but he also had such low moments. And that's my takeaway on the DJ Moore situation. And like I said, he's going to a great situation in Buffalo. They're a contender every year, and he's got a great quarterback throwing him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I hope DJ has a good year up there with Buffalo. I mean, I'll take the over under until he shows his attitude a little bit, because like you said, when he was here with Fields and he was the only option, and that was the only person Fields could somehow get the ball to, he was a happy camper, right? It was all about him. It was DJ Moore ball. You got Caleb in. We drafted Rome. You still had Komet, that first season with Caleb too. I remember when we were at the Texas game, and he was walking off the field when the ball was clearly coming his way, but he took the play off. And last year he had some remarkable plays as well. But again, when it wasn't going his way, or he didn't get the ball like he thought he should have, there clearly was some sort of I hate to use the word attitude, but there was just a demeanor about him that didn't sit right? I mean, it didn't look right on the camera, on the field. I hope he does well out there. But I think with the nucleus we have now with Caleb and Loveland and Adunze, and I think, don't forget Luther Burden.
I was about to say, you're forgetting the main reason why DJ's probably out the door.
I didn't forget. But I think that nucleus and that chemistry amongst them is really good, which that's part of making an offense click. Not only is executing the plays well, but also having that camaraderie and chemistry that they're going to have. So I think it's going to be probably the best thing that Poles is doing in the offseason by offering him up, got some draft capital for him, and you see how we use that this year. I mean, we got 4 picks in the top 100. And realistically, if you've done your scouting report right, that should be 4 starters for us this coming season coming up, as pending injuries or anything like that nature. But I know while you're saying it's going to be a defensive draft heavy year, don't forget, we don't have a left tackle.
No, yeah, I'm not saying they're not going to draft offensive positions, but I think the majority is going to be defensive people. And if it's not, I think they might be heavily mistaking and making a bunch of mistakes doing that. And I also think too, you think about it, we'll get into the draft in an episode later this week when it really dive into it. But just a hint at it, I think Ben Johnson might take a running back later in this draft as well. You got to think this is DeAndre Swift's last year on his contract. He's coming off a good season with Ben Johnson, but at the same time, you're starting to see they're trying to get this to be a young core. When you literally look at it, I mean, you got Cole Kmet out there who's the veteran, but he's also he has a specific role, mainly a blocking tight end now, who's also a receiving option as well, but blocking tight end come first. And you got Colston Loveland, just turned 22 years old. You got Luther Burden, I think he's 22 years old. You got Caleb Williams turning 23 years old this year. You got Kyle Monungai. I mean, this offense is young. And like you said, with the weapons, last year we had plenty of weapons. And when you look at the stats, guess who finished wide receiver number 4? DJ Moore did. And we were also paying him $30 million. It'd be one thing if we had DJ Moore on a $10 million year. Yeah, sure, you can stay here. But when you're getting paid $30 million, the expectations are a little bit different. And, I'm honestly surprised someone took on his contract and traded for him. But thankfully the Buffalo Bills did. And it frees up, like we said, it freed up $30 million. And we'll talk about the additions here in a minute. But it helped us get some of these defensive players that needed to come in as we ship some of these defensive players out. So I think it's good on both sides. Like you said, the Buffalo Bills, I think they're still going to get a good player in DJ Moore. that they need that one of those receivers to step up because it's kind of just Josh Allen ball over there. He's kind of freelance and doing everything on his own. So it'll definitely take some of that, superhero ball off of Josh Allen's plate. And it also helped the Bears. And in all reality, to get a second-round pick for DJ Moore, yeah, sign me up. There was rumors we might even get a fourth-round pick. Like, a second-round pick is a steal for him. I mean, I'm not saying he's not a good player, but a second-round pick for the production he had last season is a steal. He barely had 600 yards, did have a bunch of touchdowns, but at the same time, he is a little bit older now, getting to the back end of his career. You never know. Buffalo could be the last spot he ends up at. But I think it was good business on both sides. And like you said, with Luther Burden, you started to see it in the back end of the season. He started to shine and show why he deserved to be on the field. And we couldn't go another year mixing and matching when Luther Burden and Rome Odunze, they're going to be your two guys on the field 24/7 now, no matter what, unless they're in some heavy jumbo package where it's a run play, maybe a play action out of there with the 13 personnel. But Rome Odunze and Luther Burden are your guys going forward. I think Luther's going to be ready for the moment. Rome Odunze, when he was healthy last year on the start of the season, he looked like a top 5 wide receiver. And he didn't only look like one, he was in all statistical categories. So that foot needs to heal up. He has a whole offseason. And Rome and Caleb already have that connection. You saw Luther and Caleb towards the end of the year. There was still some times where Luther was running the wrong routes, not fully understanding the playbook, but with a full offseason, he's going to be familiar with the offense now, the concepts. Luther and Caleb, I've seen, been doing a lot of work in the offseason at USC. Matter of fact, all the receivers, Colston, Loveland, Rome, and Luther, all been working out together, running routes, catching balls.
You missed one.
Who's that?
Jade was there too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the craziest part is you think about Jade Walker, and we'll talk about there's another wide receiver addition that they picked up as well, but the wide receiver room is plenty deep, and to get rid of someone worth $30 million, it was the right move. It was coming, and it was nice at the time. Brian Poles extended DJ Moore, probably thinking he was going to keep up his production, and ultimately it didn't. Luckily, like we said, the Buffalo Bills were willing to take on that contract because if no one wanted to take that on, DJ Moore would still be here, and it would probably be a real tricky situation going into this draft and managing that cap. But they've got rid of him and freed up a bunch of money, and were able to make some other additions. But
yeah, don't forget too, we're 1 year away from having to pay Caleb. And if Caleb has a season like he had last year, this year, and an even better one actually, you're talking about a lot of money.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest. My opinion on that, pay him as soon as possible because you're seeing these quarterback contracts. They're just continuing. Every quarterback, as long as they're a decent quarterback, it doesn't even matter. Like, they're getting paid the next biggest contract. Like,
hey,
Caleb Williams is good. And listen, I don't care that we're paying him money. That's a good thing for us because we've never paid a quarterback ever. We don't pay quarterbacks.
If you want to talk about paying quarterbacks, whether they're average or not, all I got to say is Kirk Cousins.
Yeah,
look at how much money that guy's got.
I was about to say, he's got the greatest agent in the world. We had Drew on last week. Hopefully he's an agent like that one day, making deals like that, fleecing people, because the fact that guy's getting $170 million and he's not even a starter is insane. But, nonetheless, I agree. Pay Caleb as soon as possible. If he shows more growth this year, doesn't have to be anything crazy, but he shows more growth. I think last year showed a lot that he's the guy for the future, and Ben Johnson seemed to echo those words as well. You pay Caleb, get him on the deal, and go from there. But that's why this offseason is like really important because you have a small window where Caleb is on that rookie contract and you're not having to pay that big money. So it's honestly surprising to see the Bears not take some swing at some of these people. they were in on Max Crosby. You know, there was rumors the Bears were in on him. Ultimately, the Raiders have the control of who they want to tango with. And there was also rumors the Bears were out there on Dexter Lawrence, but the Bengals are willing to give up a 10th round pick. The Bears don't have that. So,
I
not
just
a
have
10th
a question
round,
on that whole deal.
10, yeah.
Think about the Bengals. You got Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Higgins,
And now Dexter Lawrence.
and Dexter Lawrence. Where's their cap space at? Like, how does the team afford all that?
Well, that's the thing. They afford it because those are the only 4 people they're paying, and that's why they're terrible. Because the rest of their players are just young and kind of NFL journeymen that just travel the league, and that's why the results don't show on the field because they have money tied up into so many players, and not just money. They have Jamar Chase is one of the top contracts, not just in receiver in the whole NFL outside of a quarterback. He's like the 3rd highest paid non-quarterback player in the league. You got T. Higgins, who's another great receiver. They pay him a lot of money. You got Joe Burrow, great quarterback, although with him, he gets injured a lot, and they're paying him a bunch of money, and now they're about to pay Dexter Lawrence a bunch of money. So when you tie up money like that,
yeah,
you know, it gets.
Did you say Trey?
Or Dexter Lawrence, not Trey Hendrickson's gone now.
Yeah, he's on the Ravens. Yeah, I thought you
Yeah.
said they were paying Hendrickson.
No, but they choose to pay and tie up their money, which is what you should do. Like those positions they're playing is good when you have a rookie year, like a rookie contract quarterback. But now that they got Joe Burrow, it's kind of what you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They kind of have set the example. Last year, you know, it was a rough season, but before that, people are like, how are they going to manage all this? Well, they get these middle of the pack people, you know, get them on good contracts. They have a couple of people like Chris Jones on the defense. He's one of their guys, makes a bunch of money. Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. The rest of them, though, that's why you had to see them cut ties with Tyreek Hill, you know, players like that, because you can't, in order to be a good team, you have to, you know, make some tough decisions. And some people are going to go. And when Caleb's time comes, there'll probably be some players that, you know, don't get that second contract with the Bears. And, you know, it'll hurt at the time, but it's what you have to do. You have to make tough decisions. And GM jobs are only getting tougher because every year there's groundbreaking contracts that every year it feels like every position market resets and someone's getting the next highest contract. So being a GM these days is definitely not the easiest. And I feel like, you know, Ryan Poles does get a lot of crap at times, but, you know, in my eyes, how I see it is the first couple of years he was here, he had, you know, granted, he did choose to hire Matt Eberflus, so he has to eat some of that blame, but the coaches weren't the right people here to develop players. All of a sudden, you know, you get Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen, Al Harrison here. You see players that defense specifically, you saw defensive players that were here when Matt Eberflus was here that never played, but Dennis Allen comes in here and they like look at Noah Sewell, for example. He was here for 4 years with Matt Eberflus, and Matt Eberflus never even let him play a snap. All of a sudden, Dennis Allen gets here and he's looking like a starting linebacker in the NFL. It's stuff like that where in the past, I think maybe Ryan Poles, not saying he hit home run draft picks, but he hit draft picks that were coachable, and we just didn't have the coaches to actually coach them and make them a better player. Where now we got the coaches in here. Nishan Wright's another example. NFL journeyman, cut, bounce around team to team. Al Harris gets in here, works with them. Granted, he got beat a lot and wasn't the best in coverage, but he also had a bunch of takeaways. That's credit to Al Harris. That's credit to coaching. But there's a lot of examples like that where, you know, people, you know, didn't work out in the previous regime, but stayed on the regime with the new regime coming in, and you see these players develop. That's called coaching. So you kind of saw it last year with the draft class as well. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Colston Loveland probably would have worked out even if Matt Eberflus was here. Luther Burden probably would have worked out if a different coach was here. But those later round picks like Cal Monungai, getting people in like that were a big impact in our offense, those later round picks, that's coaching. That's, doing the right thing and doing your job and coaching these players up. So I think Ryan Poles, you'll start to see it. A lot of these draft picks are going to start hitting when it comes into the regular season because we got the coaches around us now to support those players and develop them. Feel like you're starting to see that last year with Austin Booker as well. Another guy that I really can't wait to get into our season predictions later in the offseason, but Austin Booker is going to be my front runner for defensive MVP come time when season starts because
hey,
no, that's my guy, buddy. Huh? What? I said that's my guy, buddy.
That's okay. But I just want to ask one question. You don't have to give your number, but you said you can't wait to make your prediction. The Vegas line's 9.5.
Oh, I'll take easily over 9.5. But
so you're on my train this year.
I mean, I was on the train last year. They were at 8.5, and I took them to win 10 games.
You weren't on. You were like in the back.
Well, yeah, I wasn't 14-3 on that train. No, it wasn't even. It was 15-2. No, I wasn't on that crazy of a train, but I believed in the over last year too, and I'll gladly take it again this year. But let's hop into the other side of it. I think we've talked enough about some of these players that left the team, and we wish them all the best. I know I'll definitely be tuning in to them Steelers games for Jaquan Brisker. It'll be interesting to see how he does over there. And I will just one last shout out to Kevin Byard. Even though he did go to the Patriots, it makes a lot of sense. He started his career with Vrabel. He knows what kind of coach he is. He wanted to go over there, totally fine. But Kevin Byard, even it being over in the Patriots and dealing with their media, he continues to say very good things about Caleb Williams. That just shows, for all the people out there like, oh, he could just been saying those good things when he was here because you kind of have to. But now that he's with the Patriots, not saying he's going to completely crap talk him, but when these reporters are asking him questions about Caleb Williams, he is very in tune with the question, seriously paying attention and giving nothing but the highest praise. He even says he might win the MVP this year. Like, I'll respect Kevin Byard, and it's really cool to see how he's still supporting Caleb Williams from afar. And Kevin Byard, he was awesome to watch. He played with the Eagles before coming here. Didn't look like he was ever going to get back to that form. And then last year, he was all over the place, making diving interceptions, big-time plays for the Bears. So I'll just leave it on that note. But let's go over to the additions. We got quite a few. Let's just start with kind of some of these people that are going to be starting on this team. Some of the odds and ends special teamers that are going to have minimal roles I'll get to later, but let's start with some of the main people. The Bears signed wide receiver Kalif Raymond from the Lions, 1-year deal up to $5.1 million. Kalif Raymond's obviously from Detroit. He is also a return guy. I think we'll appreciate him a lot. I love Devin Duvernay. He was really good at securing that football, making sure it was caught, but Kalif Raymond's going to do the same thing, and he's a lot faster, a lot younger still in his career. Not younger in his career, really. He's been in the NFL quite a bit too, but Devin Duvernay was, really good for the ball security part, but the return yards at times, he just doesn't have the same speed he had when he was younger. But Kalif Raymond is not only a person that can play in the return game, but he will be a part of this offense as well. He's a very fast guy. It's probably another reason they got rid of DJ. We don't have really a guy that can take the top off of defenses, clear that space for the underneath routes. That will be Kalif Raymond's job. Devin Bush, linebacker from Cleveland, was a first-round pick back 3 or 4 years ago. Don't know off the top of my head. Really got a slow start to his career. But this last year with the Browns, he had his best season in the NFL. Very fast linebacker, runs a 4.3 something 40, I believe. Very fast. He's a lot smaller than Tremaine, though. I think he's only 5'11", 5'10", but he's a lot faster, can get downhill a lot quicker. But he's going to be a big addition, definitely going to be one of our starting linebackers going into this year.
10th overall pick.
Yeah, from Michigan. He's a great player. We also, the main one, probably the biggest one, Coby Bryant, the Seattle Seahawks safety from this past year in the Super Bowl. He signs a 3-year, $40 million deal with the Bears. So he's probably going to be the most electric player that we got. The biggest one we got in free agency, at least. He's electric. If you haven't watched any of his highlights, I suggest you go put them on. How I talked about Jaquan Brisker flying downhill. This guy, I think, flies downhill, and he's got better instincts where the ball's going. He's a lot quicker too. So super excited to see what he can do. The other big one is Garrett Bradbury, obviously with Drew Dahlman surprisingly retiring.
27 years old.
We had to bring in another center in here, coming from another, team that had a good season last year. He comes over from the Patriots. Very veteran presence, seeing a lot in the offense or seeing a lot of defensive fronts. It's going to be very important for him and Caleb because like Drew Dahlman did, he calls out, the blitzers, what he's seeing and communicates that to Caleb. Garrett's going to have to come in and do that same thing. And the thing I really like about this signing, which this wasn't a signing as well, we traded for him. We traded away our 5th-round pick in 2027 for him. But Garrett also played with the Minnesota Vikings, so he's very familiar with this division, which I like a lot. He knows what the NFC North's about. He's seen it. It's not going to be new to him, but he is going to be Drew Dahlman's replacement. We signed him for 2 years, worth $9.5 million. So those are the main ones as far as that goes. Another one that probably will actually be a decent impact player is we signed a defensive lineman from the Colts, Neville Gallimore. We signed him for a 2-year deal for $12 million. He is a very quick defensive lineman. He's in the interior. And when he has a lot of sacks, and he, with, Jervon Dexter, Andrew Billings is now gone, but our interior pressure pass rush isn't the best. We have Jervon and at the time Andrew Billings to stop the run, which they were really good at. But as far as affecting the quarterback, they weren't really able to ever get there. Neville Gallimore brings a whole different – he's really fast for his size, a lot quicker than anybody we have in there. So I'm sure he'll have a couple of sacks this year, at least hopefully. But he's probably another one. And then I'll just go through quickly the other players who are going to be special teams players and then maybe get some snaps here and there. Former Bear as well. He's the hometown kid, undrafted free agent. Jack Sanborn returns, which is really cool to see. He was a favorite player, kind of where people just gravitated to. But he comes back on a 1-year deal. We signed Tennessee Titans defensive lineman James Lynch to a 1-year deal. Cam Lewis, another guy who's probably going to make a big impact in special teams. And if one of the safeties go down, he'll probably get some playing time. But we signed him for a 2-year deal up to $6 million. Another interesting one, Braxton Jones. He gets extended 1-year deal for $5 million up to $10 million. That's something we can talk about here as well with the left tackle competition once again going into another season with Ben Johnson. And then the other one that's interesting, this is kind of a flyer, and if it hits, it could be a long-term solution. But Jedrick Wills from Cleveland as well, offensive tackle, former first-round pick, been dealing with some injuries, hasn't really got to hit the ground running in the NFL yet, but if he could stay healthy, and we got Dan Roshar over here, that could be a steal as well. And then we also extended DeMarco Jackson, the linebacker that eventually got a lot of playing time come end of the season. Very fast linebacker as well. We extended him for 2 years, $7.5 million deal up to $10.5 million deal. But a lot of players got added as well, and you kind of see the theme. It's a lot of defensive people couple O linemen, and then a receiver, but mostly defensive people, which is what the Bears are needing. What are your overall thoughts, Dad? Who are some of the guys you like or are looking forward to seeing play?
Well, I'm really interested in Garrett and seeing how he fills in the role at center with the exit of Dahlman. We kind of talked on the other side of the ball with Bush, coming out of Michigan, 10th pick overall. Garrett Bradbury is also a first-round pick.
Yeah,
18th overall. So you got to look at like how many first-round players do we have on the Bears right now? What does that equal to on the field? I guess is the big thing you got to look at once we get through everything. But I mean, that's the biggest one, right? I'm concerned about that offensive line for as well as it did last year. Obviously, the injury that happened to the left tackle position, and then out of nowhere the retirement for the center. So that's two key pieces on an offensive line that it's one of the things we've always talked about. So it'll be interesting how they do that. Darnell Wright just signed his extension today, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So that at least is.
They picked up his fifth-year option. So
fifth-year option. Yeah. So at least that's solidified. I think, that'll make that good. There's rumors about what they'll do with Tooney, so we'll see what happens there. But, yeah, I mean, I'm excited overall. I mean, it's football. How can you not be excited? You could put a bunch of people off the street out there, and I'd be pretty excited as long as we get the wins and the turnovers that we need. So, but that's my big one, the center.
Yeah, and I mean – I think it's a valid point to be worried and see how it meshes. I mean, we can all agree it's not going to be, Drew Dahlman. It's not going to be that type of player out there. But to your point, he's a former first-round pick. He's been in the NFL now. He's on the back end of his career, but I think it's good. He knows how to read protections. It's not going to be a rookie coming in here trying to figure out defensive fronts. He's seen all of them. And like I said earlier, he's played in this division before, and he'll be able to, fit in fairly quickly. Matt LaFleur's been in the division for a long time. Kevin O'Connell, he played for Kevin O'Connell when he was there. And, Dan Campbell's been there for a little bit too now. So he's going to know, these schemes up front in the division, which are the most important because you have, 7 or 6 games against your division. So those are 6 big games in your schedule. He'll have that familiarity. It's obviously going to take time for him and Caleb to connect. And that's why it's, kind of unfortunate with the Drew Dahlman retiring because Caleb's rookie year, kind of had a terrible center. Not just one, different people were in and out there and never got any continuity. But with Drew Dahlman, you started to see that by the end of the year. They were on the same page. Drew Dahlman was calling out all the protection up front. Caleb would adjust it as needed. And, now he's going to have to build that relationship all over again. And when you really think about it, I bet you there's rumors the Bears might take a center in this draft to develop behind Garrett so he can learn a little bit. And then next year he's going to be the starter. So it's unfortunate for Caleb because that is one of the most important connections on a football team is your center and your quarterback. And every year so far in Caleb's career, he's had a new center. It's not nice. I'm sure, it's not fun for Caleb to keep having to build new relationships and, get things under control. But, hey, it's a challenge. I know he's up for it. I feel more comfortable with it now that he's going into his 3rd year, and you could really start to see Caleb, really flourish towards the back end of last season, really start to get a grasp of the Ben Johnson offense. And that's what gives me a little bit of more hope, or I don't know if hope is the right word, but feel a little bit more safe because now he's going into his 2nd year with Ben Johnson's offense. So not everything's going to be completely foreign and learning. He'll have a good grasp of pretty much everything now, and they'll just add stuff onto plays, bring in some new plays. But I think it'll be fine, and I'm glad they went with the veteran presence. I know there were some people arguing about just drafting a young center and developing him with Caleb, but I don't think people realize like how important a center really is. Like these rookie centers, yeah, they can snap the ball. They might be able to pass and run block, but if you can't read blitzes and defensive, like that's what a center does. They call that stuff out, communicate it to the quarterback so Caleb can adjust things correctly. If you have a center that doesn't know what they're doing, calls out a wrong blitz, there goes the whole protection and the play's broken. So I'm glad they brought in a veteran presence who's experienced. It's not going to be new to him. Just him and Caleb got to build that connection. But super excited about bringing him in. And then I'm kind of really, this defensive stuff is interesting. You're starting to see what Dennis Allen wants around here. Last year, he couldn't really flush anybody out because, it's their first year together. They kind of have to see how people play and then go from there. But they're going with the speed route, which I like. They want people that are just going to fly to the football, which I really like. And we started to see it in the back end of last year, but you think about the 49ers game, you think about that first Packers game, how many times our defensive backs or safeties were just getting torched by pure speed. Instead of it being a 10-yard catch for a first down, they're 50-yard touchdowns. The one that comes to my mind is that Christian Watson. He literally ran the most basic slant route, takes it 50 yards for a touchdown. Like they need speed, and I like what they're going with, especially with Dennis Allen's defense. We saw it last year. It's a lot of blitzing. It's a lot of people lined up at the line. Some drop back, some rush the quarterback. So you need people in here with speed, and I think that's exactly what they're doing. Like I said, Devin Bush, guy runs a 4.3 as a linebacker, very fast. DeMarco Jackson, he was the same way. I don't know if he's 4.3 speed, but you saw it. He was a lot faster than Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards, like just strictly getting to the football. And then Coby Bryant, like I said, turn on his tape, go watch his closing speed. That guy's fast. He's like literally getting shot out of a cannon every time closing on these routes. So it'll be interesting. I expect when I see these people they pick on defense in the draft, especially these secondary people, and maybe even some of these edge rushers they take, they're going to be going for speed. They're going to be going for those players that just fly around the football, because at least if you're making a mistake, you're going 100 miles an hour. You're not, behind the play. So it'll be really interesting to see, but it looks like that's the direction they're going. You've heard Brian Pohl say it in this offseason. They're going for speed, and they want people that hit hard. And honestly, sign me up for it. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, it's one thing that we have an offense that the Bears have never had before with Caleb and the crew there, but we are known as the monsters of the Midway, and it would be nice to get a paired up defense with that offense. We talked about it a little bit last year, actually probably a lot of it. We're always accustomed to having these great defenses, and we kind of waste them on these mediocre. Kind of questionable offenses that we've had in the past. And now we have this taste of success with the offense, kind of being a magician, extending plays, making some unbelievable throws when, any other year that'd be an interception. So to add in with what we got there on the free agent front and the draft, at 25, or if we decide to trade up, you never know. That could be a possibility. It'll be interesting. I think you got, Coach Johnson and Pohl's thinking they're in a win now situation, right? I mean, you have to, because we talked about earlier in this segment, kind of the re-signings that we have to do in the next year or two, and then you kind of run out of money, and then you're in kind of a pickle. So I think with what they've added, what we kept, and the opportunity with those three picks in the top 60 and 4 in the top 100, you got to imagine, as long as the scout team did their job,
4 starters guaranteed.
Well, hopefully guaranteed. Knock on wood, no injuries out of them in training camp. But you got to imagine the Bears have a shot to go a little bit further. And speaking of that, You think about Caleb's first year and how how that went, and then second year under Coach Johnson and Dennis Allen, what he did with the defense. That's kind of the trajectory you want to see, right? I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah.
I think about Daniels in DC, right? First year, really great. And then last year, kind of the train went off the tracks, or the wheels fell off the bike. And I would rather be in the trajectory that we are, where the first year was a little rough. You learn the game, you make some changes at coaching, you bring in some players, and we went to where we went. Granted, we would have liked last season to end a little bit different, but I think that gives you just enough hungriness that this year could be really, really special.
Well, yeah, and if you want to look at anything to point in positive signs, like you said, just go back and look at Ben Johnson's first year with Jared Goff. I think they finished 8-9, if I'm not mistaken. I might have to go back and double check, but they didn't get quite to the full extent that the Bears got this year with a playoff berth, and the offense kind of fully clicking come end of the season. But like I said, this is only going into year two. Year two and Ben Johnson with the lines of him being the OC is when they really got what we had last year. So I feel like, the offense I'm not worried about. I think Ben Johnson showed us enough last year that we all have full faith in him. We knew it before he came in here, but there was still some questions out there. Can he translate it, with the Bears organization? And he definitely over-delivered, in my opinion. I don't think anybody would argue that. And like you said, it's going into year two. And like you said, Caleb's had the steady growth of, not a great situation his rookie year with the coaching and stuff. And when you look back at it, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, but terrible offensive line outside of Darnell Wright. That's why he's the reason he's the only one still here. But he still had a good season for a rookie. I mean, maybe not to the number one hype, but he got a lot of crap. We talked about it last year going into the season. He got a lot of crap for his rookie season, but when you look at it, it really wasn't all that bad. There was still, obviously, the sacks was probably the biggest thing, but that ties into the offensive line as well. And then last year, I mean, it wasn't just he took 2 steps up the stairs. I mean, he went from like the first floor to like the 5th floor if we're in like a 10-story building. So I expect this year for it to be another, him make that next jump, especially that's the other thing you have to think about last year. He still made a great jump and he learned a whole new offense. Now he's got the same offense where they're going to add a little bit of wrinkles, but he knows the roots of the playbook of, what Ben Johnson is trying to do in his scheme. So I think he's going to have a great year too. And I agree with Kevin Byard. I don't know if it's next year, but Caleb Williams got a couple MVPs in him in his career in this league. It's without a doubt. I mean, the guy's unreal. I mean, if Caleb was making plays like that, how he was that back half of that season, the majority of the season, I think he could have easily won MVP. I mean, the guy was electric. People seem to forget, too. He finished 4th in MVP voting come end of the year on DraftKings. Like, he was starting to make that run just a little bit too late. But like Kevin Byard said, and like I think he's got plenty of them in his future. And sign me up, because the quarterbacks we've dealt with here, outside of maybe Jay Cutler, even he had his own issues. He was just a dickhead. But, Caleb Williams seems like he's the guy. He's really embraced this city. He's brought together, which I think is really cool. You saw it this offseason. He's bringing together all these Chicago sports stars. He's been hanging out with PCA from the Cubs, Connor Bedard from the Blackhawks, Matas Buzelis from the Bulls, all these young and upcoming Chicago stars. He's kind of building that, that foundation and getting all these young guys together for Chicago sports. And you love to see it as a Chicago fan, because there are fans out there that they pick and choose their teams that they want to support, and they're all from different cities. However, I support all our Chicago teams. So seeing all these young stars come together and do a lot of this bonding stuff this offseason, you saw them together at games, at festivals. I'm sure you'll continue to get to see it, but it was just really cool to see. It's also like a family. They're supporting each other. You might as well embrace it, especially when you're one of these young stars. You're going to be in the city for a while. Why not embrace it and go full in? And I think Caleb's done a good job at that. It just ties back to the stuff we talked about last season with the media just running his name through the mud. This guy is a first class. He's not only a first class athlete, he's a first class person off the field with his organization, his Caleb Cares stuff. But just, he could easily be like, oh, I'm too good for these people. Like the media painted him out to be like he's some terrible person. But he really is just a cool dude, bro. Like he goes about his stuff the right way. So the media narrative, I think that's kind of been fully put to bed. You're obviously still going to have your haters out there that are going to hate no matter what. But for the most part, I think last year was a good year for Caleb to get the media off his back. But as we saw last year, Caleb loved it. I mean, he took shots at, commentators, Troy Aikman, for example. He took shots at national media people. He wasn't scared to run his mouth, and he liked when that pressure was on him. Now with that off him, just imagine. I mean, he liked it, but now he has it completely off and he can kind of fly free. It's like the little baby birds leaving the nest and they're about to go spread their wings. The guys, dude, I don't know, man. I'm just happy. It's fun to watch football. Hopefully it's not guaranteed, but hopefully they do make that improvement this year. At the bare minimum, at least a playoff shot again, because we need that around here. And it was so much fun last year watching the games. It actually felt, I was looking forward to waking up and watching the Bears play football on Sunday. But let's transition to our last segment of this. I thought it'd be a little fun to do this before we fully get into swing of things. But the stadium update, we got 2 locations. Let's give our piece. Obviously, the main one that's pretty much, as long as the Bears agree to it, it's ready to go, is the Hammond, Indiana. That stadium, or obviously Arlington Heights is still in play. The Bears obviously brought that property 5 years ago, and a news piece did come out today. Wednesday is the official meeting for the Illinois. I don't know if it's a governor's, a senator's, whatever, but they're meeting Wednesday officially, and it's pretty much going to be the be-all, tell-all if the Bears are going to stay in Illinois, because if that passes on Wednesday, it will more than likely be the Bears ending up in Arlington Heights. But I just wanted to give our 2 cents. I'll let you say your piece, but I'll start it off. I get the reason Kevin Warren and the Bears are, giving Indiana a shot, because they're giving them the tax certainty the Bears are looking for. But I'm going to be honest, if the Bears end up in Indiana, it will be an absolute disappointment.
Can't happen.
Chicago Bears, for one. It's an Illinois team. I get it. It's literally 10 minutes over the border. I was just in Illinois last week and actually passed by where they're going to be building the stadium if they were, and it's a ghost town out there. Obviously, if they built a stadium, other businesses would come with it. There'd be plenty of stuff I'm sure would, make the city, plenty of stuff to do around it. But this team does not need to leave Illinois. And if it ends up leaving Illinois, it's not even the Bears' fault to blame. It's those governors, those senators over there. They don't want to give the Bears the tax certainty they're wanting. I understand that from a taxpayer's perspective, but at the same time, I feel like there's some exceptions that need to be made. It's the Chicago Bears. Let's be for real here. There's some organizations, some companies that deserve that tax certainty. This isn't Google coming in from California trying to build a headquarters in Chicago. This is your Chicago Bears. Like, this is a franchise, storied franchise. We're not talking about, the Las Vegas Raiders or something. Like, this is the Chicago Bears. This is a pinnacle of the NFL. One of the longest tenured teams in the NFL. Like, the Illinois governors on Wednesday need to make a real smart decision and get this stuff passed so they can start building in Arlington Heights. Because in reality, I'll even say this. Being at that playoff game in Soldier Field, it almost feels wrong that they're leaving that stadium. I get it. They need to build a new stadium. It's it's that stadium's been along for around a long time, and the Bears want to bring in more money, host March Madness, tournaments, stuff like that, big time concerts, and they can't really do that at Soldier Field like they would like. So I get that, but at the bare minimum, it needs to stay in Illinois. I'm not going to lie. When it first came out, the news about Arlington Heights, I was like, yes, move the Bears there instantly. But after going to that playoff game, it's like, I'm telling you, just that vibe in that city. I'm not the biggest fan of cities in general and being in those crowded atmospheres, but something about being in the city with all the fans, walking bar to bar, hanging out with just Bears fans, it just reminds you why sports are so beautiful. Everyone can drop everything in the outside world around them and just come together. You don't see that very often in today's world, so it's really nice to be a part of something like that. And Soldier Field, the atmosphere is just electric there. But I'm sure if they stay in Illinois, Arlington Heights will be just as great, especially if it's a new stadium. And I agree, I get a lot of crap for this take, but build the dome. I don't care. I'm a component for playing in good weather conditions every single game that is at your field. So I loved sitting on the negative 20-degree weather. It didn't bother me. I was all bundled up and just adrenalined up that it didn't really bother me during that playoff game. But at the same time, I'm for the players getting to play in the best conditions and put on the best show they can. But I'm sure, there's other fans out there, like some of my buddies. Football's an outside sport. The weather's it makes a good, atmosphere where you never know what kind of weather you're going to get. But I think you're starting to see most of these teams transition to dome stadiums, and it just gets a better quality of the game. And I'm sure in our lifetime, everyone will eventually switch to a dome. It makes for the best product of football on the field.
Yeah, I don't know much about the laws, the ins and outs, the politics of it, the taxes, the costs. Here's what I do know. It's only three truths in life, right? You're born, you got to pay taxes, and you're going to die. There's not many taxes I like paying, but that's a tax that I could support, right? Obviously, I have an interest in the Bears. You have an interest in the Bears. But, I mean, I don't think Chicago should leave Illinois. I really don't think they should leave Chicago. I mean, they're the Chicago Bears. You think about so many teams out there, the San Francisco 49ers don't play in San Francisco. You got things of that nature. But I think the Bears should stay at Soldier Field. The history of it, granted, they've renovated it, done the things they've done to it. Dome would be nice.
I was about to say, but that's the thing. They've tried to buy the stadium. The Illinois won't let them. They don't want them to fully own it. It's a bunch of bull crap. And they bought the Arlington Heights property, which, like I said, Arlington Heights, it would be amazing. I mean, it's in the suburbs. I know some people in the city wouldn't be too happy, but it's been in the city long enough. And at the bare minimum, if it has to be Arlington Heights over Indiana, I think everyone would sign up for that. Because in all reality, Arlington Heights is a great area. It's, safer for one, not that Soldier Field isn't safe, but it's a safer atmosphere. And it's just, I think it would be amazing. And the stadium they're going to build, it's going to be nuts. I mean, you look what Kevin Warren did with the Minnesota Vikings and building that stadium. People say that stadium is unreal to be at. I'm sure whatever he builds here is going to be amazing, but we'll have to check up Wednesday because that's when that hearing is going to be going on. Well, they'll be doing that voting. So Wednesday's a big day for the Chicago Bears and fans of the Chicago Bears because that's where we're really going to get an idea. If that passes, it's more than likely Illinois is going to be the spot they end up in Arlington Heights. So let's hope and pray for that sake because, like you said, at the bare minimum, it needs to stay in Illinois. It cannot go outside the state.
Yeah, I think about infrastructure too, right? Like I'm very familiar with both those areas. You already have, Arlington Heights, you have Schaumburg, you have all those big suburbs around there. You already have hotels in place. You have the big event centers in place. Obviously, the train runs right by the racetrack that used to be there, so you have that in place. Whether you're coming from the northwest suburbs, you're going to come from the city out to go to the game. The airport is, in close vicinity going to O'Hare. So if you're flying in, from out of state and you're going to go to a game, you can even, that makes it easier. So there's a lot of things that are already built in. You build it over the border in Indiana, you're going to
I'm telling you, it's a ghost town, man.
Well, that's what I'm
really
saying.
is.
You're going to have to build that infrastructure into it, which will take time, right? Now, granted, someone could argue the infrastructure isn't built up enough to handle a big, massive stadium. But don't forget, Arlington Heights Racetrack, when they did their big races, they had the big stakes there, even did the 4th of July, celebration that they would do every year with the amazing fireworks to music. That would pull in a considerable amount of crowd. And they were able to handle it fine. And I don't think many people took the train to Arlington to go to the races. Pretty much everyone drove there, brought their stuff and, had a good time at the racetrack. So to me, it just seems like the most logical fit. One, keep it in Illinois. Two, the infrastructure's already in there. You got 90 nearby, you got 53 nearby, and then obviously those, bleed off into all the other major arteries of the Chicagoland area. So no matter where you're at, whether you're on the south side, the southwest suburbs, the northwest suburbs, you can get there relatively easy. Way easier than having to drive downtown and find a parking garage or park at the lot, and that's a nightmare in itself when you go do that. I just think it's a no-brainer. Chicago Bears, keep them in Illinois, build a new stadium, and it's going to bring in so much revenue too. I mean, you think about, the tax revenue alone just from the commerce that'll happen around that area between restaurants and, entertainment, hotels, and those fees that happen on there. I got to think it's a good deal. I don't know the ins and outs, like I said in the beginning, but to me, it would be a shame to lose, an Illinois team to another state. But we'll see what they do. We'll see what the lawmakers decide. Obviously, it's in their hands, and hopefully they're all discussing ways to make it happen and get the ball over the goal line, so to speak. But it'd be bad if it moved anywhere else.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, the infrastructure is already there. Arlington, a racetrack, the land they bought, it's 326 acres. There is plenty of room. I mean, I remember going there as a kid. Like you said, everyone pretty much drove there, and they could hold plenty of people.
Packed them in.
And on top of that, outside of that, obviously the stadiums can be way bigger than the racetrack, but they have plenty of it's all green grass out there. They can do whatever they want out there. And then, like you said, in Arlington Heights, in Schaumburg, the nearby cities, there's already restaurants, hotels, everything's already built up, and it's only going to bring in, it's another reason these governors need to just wake up. Give the Bears a tax certainty, because all that other business and property in Illinois is going to get brought in if you move the Bears there. It's gonna bring in a lot of money for the state of Illinois. So if they let this, get out of Illinois, it's gonna be the biggest mistake that, the state of Illinois has ever made. So I think they're finally coming to their senses. I think maybe the state of Illinois was just playing a little bit of hardball, trying to get what they want. But I feel like at the end of the day, they're gonna have to suck up to the Bears, because they've, kind of sat in a puddle this whole time, pouting. And now, I don't think they're that dumb where they're going to let them leave Illinois, because if they do, like I said, it'd just be a terrible mistake. And at the same time, that's why if they do end up going to Indiana, it'll suck. But at the end of the day, you can't even blame the Bears, because the stadium lease is coming up at Soldier Field in 2032, I believe, and they've already tried to buy the stadium outright in that land, and the Illinois governors won't let them do it. So they're kind of giving them no option if they're not going to pass this and let them build in Arlington Heights. So, and honestly, I just think there's no way the Bears bought that land and they're not going to build there. There's no way. They bought that land for a reason. Obviously, if they don't build there, they can still sell it to somebody else, and somebody else will build something over there. But I think that's where the Bears will end up. It's where I wanted them to end up from the beginning. It'll be super cool to see that. And if you're, live in Illinois, you might want to go buy some property in Arlington Heights here pretty soon, because I was talking with some of my uncles this weekend that are some Bears fans out there, and it'd be pretty good property to flip come time when that stadium gets built, because that market over there is going to get driven through the roof. But it'll be, pretty cool to see. And, it'd be awesome to see a new stadium like that. And like I said, Soldier Field would be great, but the new way of stadiums are mostly domes now. Like I said, you're seeing plenty of people transition to it. And I think it would be awesome to see a stadium like that. I mean, we've been to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That's a recent one that just was, built. You look at the Raiders Stadium, that one, Allegiant Stadium, is amazing. One of my favorites, not a lot of people like it, but SoFi Stadium, the shape of that stadium, of how it looks on the outside, looks insane. There's just some cool stadiums nowadays, these newer ones getting built. And I think, if the Bears ultimately do want to still leave that cold weather, do something with the retractable roof where you can still, during the season, let that stuff in. And then maybe for your big events with concerts and stuff like that, it has a roof that can close, which I'm sure they would do something like that anyways. But in all reality, dude, the weather stuff, it's like, would you rather watch a pouring rain football game, or rather watch good conditions? Your quarterback can sling the ball. Maybe in the past when we had, Rex Grossman here or someone along those lines, maybe let the weather conditions be crap because it'll affect the other quarterback. But now that we got a quarterback that can sling the football, let's let him play in the best conditions he can play in, which hopefully Caleb's around for that. I mean, if he is the guy, he ultimately will be. Towards the back half of his career, he'll get a chance to play in that stadium and imprint his legacy as a Chicago Bear. But I thought we'd end it with that. Just it's kind of fun. It's been talked about way too long and ongoing, but it ultimately does seem like this is the year where the deal's going to get done, because Roger Goodell is now starting to push them as well. And you guys got to get this done. So, which that's another thing. That's a reason Illinois is meeting this week, is because next week the Bears are meeting with Roger Goodell, and they have to give updates regarding the stadium stuff. So Roger Goodell came out a couple weeks ago and said, you guys better have a plan in place here in a few weeks. So I think that's why Illinois is finally starting to see that this is no joke. And with, Indiana already, on board, ready to go, just waiting for the Bears go button to get started, I think the Illinois State is in some trouble, and they're like, all right, let's actually get together and get this done, because if not, the Bears won't be here anymore. So, and in all reality, lastly, to wrap this up, I hate talking about this stadium stuff because it just makes me mad, but the Chicago Bears are the biggest team you have in Chicago. They're the biggest. You have, obviously, your Cubs fans, but half the baseball fans are White Sox fans. The Bulls haven't been relevant since Michael Jordan, and the Blackhawks haven't been relevant in 10 years. So, but the city all gravitates towards the Chicago Bears. It's their biggest team in Chicago. They let them get outside. It'll just be dumb. But I think ultimately, if you had to go today, where do you think they're going to end up? I think they're still going to end up at Arlington Heights. I think
Arlington. I just think it's the process, right? And sometimes you got to go through the process. Everyone, when you get politics in play, has to get their piece of the pie in order to make it look like they're posturing for their constituents. And, that's just the way politics goes. But I stay out of it because at the end of the day, it is what it is. Ain't much I can control about it. And I think they'll end up doing whatever they got to do to make it happen. A fun fact I just looked up, though, in Arlington Heights, capacity as a racetrack could hold 15,000 cars on site. Soldier Field, in its current standing, in the parking garages that surround it, minus the Millennium Parking Garage, which you have to take the shuttle bus from and to the field, only holds 6,750 cars. So you think about, from a tailgating perspective, right, which is another element to the game, which the renderings I've watched of that Arlington Heights field and what they, are proposing what they could do, it looks like an all-day event, right? I mean, it looks like it's not just tailgating; it's a spectacle to see. You go there and basically have a day and an evening out of it, depending on when the game's at. I just think it would be wrong to not do it. I mean, it would be a remarkable thing.
It'd be a terrible decision, and that's why ultimately I think it's going to end up happening. I mean, you bring up a good point about the parking stuff because, I mean, granted, we went to a tailgate, parked about a mile and a half away, then walked to the stadium, which it's not bad. It's part of the experience. You're walking with all the other fans, but at the same time, it is kind of nice. You can sit in your car, not sit in your car, but sit in your parking spot, put up a couple of chairs, grill out, merge together with all the other fans around you, walk around a little bit, and you can also enjoy that tailgate for as long as possible before having to go in the stadium, where when you're tailgating at a lot and you're waiting for, the game to start, you have to leave a pretty good amount of time in advance to walk because it's a long walk. It's a lot, but parking is the biggest thing too, which I'm sure they'll run up those prices. I mean, the tailgating lots just at Soldier Field were crazy. I remember looking when we were going up there. I mean, tailgating parking spots were like $300 a piece, and it was a playoff game, but still, more parking spots that probably be able to drive down those costs because it's more spots when you think about it. But yeah, it'll be nice. I'm saying it too. Like Chicago, it is nice. It's nice to visit, and it is cool, the atmosphere in Chicago, walking through those tunnels in Grant Park afterwards and screaming Green Bay sucks through these tunnels, and it echoes everywhere. But I think it would be really nice to get a stadium out in the suburbs. The people in the suburbs have traveled plenty of times into Chicago for hundreds of years, I'm sure. Now let's let the people from the city, like you said, it's still easy. They hop on the train, takes you right to there. You can get off, take the train right back to the city. It's kind of what we did in the suburbs. We hop on the train, get off, and go to the stadium.
There's a little difference to that, though. Like, I've parked in the South Lot. I've parked at the Waldron parking garage. I've parked at the Planetarium parking lot. I've parked at the Convention Center parking lot before, the Millennium Garage before, and I've also taken the train in. And taking the train in isn't really taking the train in because you go to the downtown station and then you got to, take a bus or get a cab and get over to the stadium. At least with Arlington, right? You can get to the train station and you go right by the field. So you're literally at the train station there in Arlington Heights. You can get off, walk right over to the park. Little different experience than having to go all the way from Union Station to the stadium. And you think of some of those places you have to park in Chicago to get to the game. Now, obviously, the South Lot's the best, right? In my opinion, from a tailgating perspective. But like if you park at the Convention Center, you can do a little tailgating out there, and then you got to take the long walk, go underneath the tunnel, I call it, where the cars are going by, and take that across and get over to Soldier Field. Not the most pleasant walk in the world, in my opinion. The one from the Millennium Garage is pretty decent, right? Because you go through the park downtown, walk along the lakeshore, pass by the Museum of Science and Industry, and then boom, you're finally at the stadium, 2 hours later, depending on how you walk. I don't know. To me, it's a no-brainer. That's all I got to say. I mean, just get the deal done. And if you're not going to get the deal done, then do something with downtown, keep it on the lakeshore, and you go from there. But I think it's a no-brainer to put it in Arlington Heights.
Yeah. And just to second that, when you leave the stadium, especially maybe some of these games that are at the 1 o'clock start, or in Illinois, it's 12. I just say 1 o'clock because I'm in Eastern time zone. But those noontime games, you think about it afterwards, you get out of the Bears game, you have to walk like a mile just to get back in the city where the bars are. Darlington Heights, they're right outside. I've my buddies that go there on the weekends to have a good time. They talk about the bar life out there. It's perfect. It's like just plenty of strips of bars. And at that, if they were to build in Arlington Heights, you literally can walk there in 10 minutes. Where at Soldier Field, I'm telling you, when we left that playoff game, it took us like 40 minutes just to get back in the city to call an Uber. Like, I think it would just be a lot more efficient, to do something like that, where you can kind of explore the day afterwards, after a game or before it, vice versa. But ultimately, it needs to end up in Arlington Heights, in my opinion. I've been begging for it. I might move back up there if they get to Arlington Heights because it would just be great. It'd be super nice, but I think we can end it there. We've talked a little bit about the players that got added, the players that went away, and then obviously the little fun topic at the end with the stadium stuff. We haven't really talked about it in our podcast too much because it's just been an ongoing thing for 3 years, but finally looks like it's coming to an end. So I figured we'd give our insights before a final decision. Obviously, this is draft week. Plan on getting out another episode with a little mock draft that we'll put together ourselves. Maybe not necessarily a mock draft because I don't know if I'm too deep into that, but maybe some players that are rumored to the Bears that we like, we don't like. We can go through that as well, but definitely plan on getting another episode out before the draft Wednesday night. And then obviously do a follow-up episode next week once the players are drafted and we can give our thoughts, evaluations, what to expect. And then right after that, the players showed up today for voluntary workouts. The Bears players did, so it was good to see them all back in Hallis Hall. Everyone seems excited, ready to get going. Football's getting close. It's still about good 4 months away from preseason, but slowly but surely we're getting there. The NBA, NHL playoffs just started. Don't really care about the NBA, but NHL, it's always a good watch. It's a lot of fun to get us by. Masters just wrapped up, but just ready for football to be back. So
all I'm going to say about the mock draft is this. Tyler Warren, we thought was the pick, and then they drafted Colston Loveland. Now, obviously, that was the right pick for the Bears. But mock drafts, to me, are like buying a lottery ticket. You just don't know, right?
I was about to say the only one that I feel like in recent time where like there was an overall consensus outside of Caleb Williams, obviously, but that was obvious. I'm saying Rome Odunze was the only other pick where everyone was literally Rome Odunze at 9, take him. And we did take him.
That was only because the Falcons took Penix, right? Like we weren't.
But that's what I'm saying. Everyone had Rome mocked to the Bears, and the fans also wanted Rome Odunze.
Yep.
It's like you said, the majority of times everyone has all these players, and it never ends up being that player. But that's why I'm saying we can maybe go through a couple of mocks that other people have made that of players we like, don't like. Maybe even just positions we want drafted at that position, at that pick. Like, for example, the 25th pick, what kind of player would we want? What position type? And honestly, it's a little tricky, but we can go through some of that stuff. But I think that'll wrap up this episode. Very lengthy one. I'll close this out from here. As always, guys, like, comment, subscribe. We are finally starting to get in the swing of things. As you can see, we both got our new setups. It's looking good over there, Dad. Looking good. I might need to add a little bit more fancy lights like you got over there.
You need some flair.
I might need a new camera as well that can zoom out a little bit and show a little bit more that I got hanging up. But like I said, like, comment, subscribe. A lot of videos coming up. We're starting to get back in the swing of things. Share this with your Bears friends out there as Bears season gets underway. Maybe do a live show on draft night. We'll see. Maybe night one, we might do a live show. I've been looking into it. I think it'd be a lot of fun to do that. It's my birthday as well. We could have a lot of fun, order some wings, order some pizza, watch the draft. It's usually a long night, but it'd be a lot of fun. But we'll see about doing that. But for now, as always, take care and bear down.